This is a memorandum to the people of Berks County from yours truly regarding an alternative to the sale of Berksheim. And it reads as follows. The current controversy regarding the proposed sale of Berksheim has been viewed as a matter of two difficult choices: raising taxes to offset losses or sell the facility. Today I will propose a third, more appealing approach that may preserve the Heim as a county-owned asset while eliminating the losses that would necessitate a tax increase. Recognizing the passion and commitment of those who wish to retain our county home, I will temporarily suspend my support for a sale of the Heim in the sincere hope that interested parties can reach a reasonable compromise by means of the proposal described in this memorandum. I will begin with an overview of the factors supporting and weighing against the proposed sale, followed by a description of the initiatives that may render a sale unnecessary and secure Berksheim for the foreseeable future. Considerations supporting the sale of Berksheim are as follows. Throughout its history, Berksheim has suffered from an erratic financial performance, at times generating large losses, while at others, large profits. Over the long run, the Heim is essentially broken even. However, current forecasts based upon a reasoned analysis suggest a long-term negative trend is impending. The factors supporting worsening losses we project include the following. First, flat revenue. Berksheim derives most of its revenue from Medicaid payments covering 80% of its residents. The Medicaid rate is established by state and federal authorities and has increased a total of less than 10% over the past decade, despite much greater increases in actual operating costs. The county has to date received no encouragement to the effect that Medicaid payments will increase at any point in the future. Intergovernmental transfer funds provide some additional income, but are unpredictable, volatile, and have been suspended in the recent past. An important third source of revenue is private pay residency, which has experienced some daily rate growth over the years. However, private pay applies to only about a fifth of Heim residents and is subject to competition from other institutions, many of which have lower operating costs. Now, managed care. Circa 2020, the state will be contracting with managed care managers, and they will become the gatekeepers for Medicaid clients nearing or already receiving nursing home care. Those for-profit managers will have every incentive to delay entry into residential care by prolonging cheaper in-home assisted living and thereafter selecting, or promoting at least, the least expensive residential facilities. As a high-cost, high daily rate option, Berksheim may be at a competitive disadvantage under this scenario. Accordingly, managed care portends greater competition, lower negotiated bed rates, and perhaps diminished occupancy percentages. Berksheim's financial projections assume a 98% occupancy of its 420 beds. A substantial impairment of this enviable occupancy rate through managed care could dramatically exacerbate the projected losses for the future. Now, short-term rehabilitation. To its credit, the Berksheim management has recently and successfully augmented revenue by using vacant beds and underutilized equipment for rehabilitation services marketed to other institutions such as hospitals. Other facilities have seized upon this opportunity of late, creating a more competitive market, possibly resulting in declining income at Berksheim. Now, collective bargaining agreements. With the exception of a small management complement, collective bargaining agreements with SEIU Healthcare PA and the United Food and Commercial Workers Union govern the county's management of its labor force at Berksheim. Contract provisions regarding wage rate increases, payment of overtime, vacations, holidays, personal and sick days, and other benefits are generous and significantly in excess of industry standards in many instances. Among the more onerous contract provisions are the following: continuous annual wage growth in excess of inflation, double time pay for non-scheduled work computed by including premium pay and shift differential in the hourly rate. Although full-time employees are required to work every other weekend as part of their regularly scheduled work week, Saturday and Sunday hours are paid at 1 1/2 times the regular hourly rate, including shift differential and any other premium pay. Overtime is paid for work in excess of 7.5 hours per day and for hours in excess of 75 per pay period, in other words, 2 weeks. SEIU employees are eligible for 12 paid sick days per year, which if unused accumulate up to 40 days, the balance of which are paid at retirement. UFCW employees are eligible for 9 paid sick days per year, which unused may not accumulate. Upon employment, SEIU employees receive 3 weeks vacation, which escalates with longevity, and if unused may accumulate up to 35 days, the balance of which will be paid out upon retirement, resignation, or discharge. UFCW employees may accumulate unused vacation pay up to 45 days, the balance of which will be paid out upon retirement, resignation, or discharge. SEIU employees receive a paid birthday as a holiday and are paid double time if they elect to work on that birthday. Thus, a registered nurse, based on their base hourly rate, working on a birthday is paid for that one day $494.40. The county has in place also a light duty policy for Heim employees who are injured when not at work. No maximum time period pertains to such light duty eligibility. The foregoing contract provisions likely result in excess annual operating costs in the millions of dollars versus similar capacity privately operated nursing homes, whether for-profit or non-profit. For example, elimination of the regularly scheduled weekend overtime provision applicable to SEIU employees alone would reduce annual wage expense by roughly $700,000. In addition, the County Budget Department estimates that each year of a wage freeze going forward, and that means foregoing a 2.5% increase scheduled for SEIU and UFCW annually, will result in savings in excess of $500,000 for each year that is forfeited. Clearly, the Heim labor agreements more closely aligned with the compensation, working conditions, benefits, and scheduling prevalent in private facilities, not to mention among the county's non-union workforce. The projected losses would be diminished or disappear, and Medicaid rates would suffice to cover operating costs long into the future. Pension obligations. Of 533 Heim employees, 450 are pension benefit eligible and represent 18%, or $750,000 of the county's annual pension contribution expense. A sale of the facility would freeze the number of eligible pension participants and amortize the related annual expense over time. Union membership should be mindful that the county's defined benefit pension is a luxury few private sector employees enjoy. A nurse earning an annual salary of $50,000 will receive $800 in annual income upon retirement for every year worked, or $16,000 annually after only 20 years of employment. And that amount will be augmented by employee contributions and compounding. In addition, employee contributions to the pension earn a guaranteed 4 1/2% annually, a rate of return difficult to achieve in today's market. Considerations weighing against the sale. From my perspective, the arguments against the sale of Berksheim are largely based upon subjective perceptions involving loss of a superior end-of-life health care resource, an expectation of diminished quality of care in a privately operated Heim, and a sense of civic pride of ownership and tradition. These arguments and perceptions are not to be dismissed or trivialized. They are very real among a substantial portion of Berks County citizens. Indeed, in my opinion and the opinion of others whom I respect, the community's attachment to the Heim is extraordinary and probably unequaled in any other county operating a public facility. Apart from the intangible virtues attributed to Berks Heim, it is without question a modern, efficient, well-managed institution. To date, it's highly regarded and competitive in many respects versus alternative facilities. It continues to provide the greatest percentage of care to the indigent with 80% Medicaid beds. And to their credit, Berks Heim also receives the support of numerous volunteers whose efforts in support of resident care would be diminished or lost upon a sale. Now, from a personal perspective, I take considerable pride in having played a pivotal role in building a new Berks Heim facility circa 2003, and with the support of former Commissioner Timothy River, right-sizing it at 420 beds instead of the previously recommended 625. And off the cuff, that's enabled the Heim to survive since 2004, essentially making a profit or breaking even. A larger facility would have hemorrhaged an enormous amount of red ink and probably would have been sold by now. Now, my proposed alternative to the sale, this is the part you're waiting for, I guess. A Berks Heim that operates efficiently, requiring no taxpayer subsidy to supplement its operating revenues, need not be sold. It may remain the revered community asset it has always been. This preferred outcome may be achieved by means of the following two initiatives. Number one, labor contract negotiation. The first step toward operating independence will be the willingness of SEIU and UFCW to modify their contracts so as to achieve significant labor expense reduction. In this regard, all of the costly, above-market contract provisions to which I have referred should be open for discussion. As a matter of good faith, the county should disclose in detail its financial projections and the factual assumptions upon which they are predicated. The unions and county should quickly select negotiating representatives, including legal counsel, and schedule exploratory discussions as soon as possible. The overriding objective for the duration of any negotiation must be the long-term financial viability of Berks Heim as an independent operating unit of Berks County government. For my part, I will commit to a suspension of support for a sale of the Heim for an initial period of 60 days, commencing July 15, 2018, and for an extension of time thereafter, given mutual consent of all parties. If at any time both SEIU and UFCW state in writing a refusal to negotiate or fail to appear at a scheduled negotiating session, I will then reinstate my support for the sale of Berks Heim forthwith. Let me repeat that. For my part, I will commit to a suspension of support for a sale of Berks Heim for an initial period of 60 days, commencing July 15, 2018, and for an extension of time thereafter, given the mutual consent of all parties. Secondly, this is something I thought up while walking my mile after work. As an incentive to labor contract concessions and to further ensure the financial independence and long-term viability of Berks Heim, I propose the creation of an endowment fund to serve as a secondary financial resource. The endowment would be established for specific Heim purposes, including supplemental operating revenue during lean years or for unforeseen exigencies. The endowment funds would be controlled by a trustee, preferably the Berks Community Foundation, and would not be accessible to the commissioners except upon request to and approval from the trustee. Initial funding of the endowment would be derived of 50% of the value of union concessions measured against the contracts currently in place. Thus, in compromising their current compensation and/or benefit package, the unions would be building an independently controlled buffer against the financial losses that have prompted commissioners to consider selling the Heim now and in the past. Beyond union concessions, and just as importantly, I call upon our Berks County community as a whole, in particular businesses, charities, and affluent individuals, to join in funding a Heim endowment. Surely the Heims, formerly hardworking, responsible retirees, facing their twilight years under Medicaid, are every bit as deserving of community support as are the other groups currently receiving assistance. A contribution to the Heim endowment would serve to enhance the importance of merit as a criterion for charitable giving. Now for some acknowledgments. In drafting this memorandum, I've been encouraged by informal discussions with union representatives who have portrayed a willingness among their members to consider contractual compromise. We owe them the courtesy of that opportunity. I also wish to thank members of the Berks County Budget and Human Relations Department and Terry Brennan, Berks Heim Administrator, as well as Kevin Murphy of the Berks County Community Foundation for the information and insights that have helped make my proposal possible. And last but not least, I want to thank my executive assistant, Michelle Kircher, for her ongoing steadfast support of my office, which has enabled me to engage in projects such as this, hopefully for the benefit of this community. To conclude, the salvation of Berks County as we know it will in the first instance require significant compromise. Let me back up. Salvation of Berks Heim as we know it will in the first instance require significant compromise by the unions. It is in their best interest to do so, as a sale will surely result in diminished wages and benefits, as well as loss of secure retirement income from a generous pension. To make union sacrifices more palatable, I have proposed devoting a portion of them to an endowment that will serve as an investment in the long-term viability of Berks Heim as a component of county government. Again, progress toward a compromise I can support must begin with the willingness of our represented employees to embrace concessions that will enable Berks Heim to compete in an increasingly competitive and uncertain environment. Neither the commissioners nor the unions created that environment, but we must grapple with it together in concert with the community as a whole if we are to succeed. In this memo, I have emphasized the importance of the long run. I am not interested in and will not support a short-term fix that fails to address the trends and uncertainties that threaten the Heim and will eventually raise the specter of yet another sale proposal in a few years. Only significant, lasting expense reduction, supplemented by private endowment reserve funding, can secure the Heim's long-term future. Respectfully submitted, yours truly. And that concludes my written remarks, which I could have delivered better, but in any event, I was able to throw that together. The written copy is not very well typed. My computer skills are very limited, as you know, but it is, I think, pretty readable, and you're welcome to have a copy, and that should simplify your job in reviewing this story, which may or may not be noteworthy. Hopefully it will be. I'm optimistic that a compromise can be reached. I know there are many people who have much stronger devotion to this facility than I do, and I respect their opinions. Now is probably their last best chance to save this cherished county resource, and I encourage them to step forward, all of them, the unions, the public, the community foundation, people in positions of influence, to make this happen and make it a reality. But again, I'm not interested in putting this off for a few years, and neither should the union be interested in putting it off. I want the union people, the employees of the Heim, to be paid well, maybe at a slight premium to what other employees and other institutions make, so that we can secure the best. But they're going to have to step up and take a good hard look at what they're receiving now and what they would receive later in the event of a sale, and embrace the reality of this unfortunate economic situation. We can all come out of this as winners if we're willing to step forward and be reasonable. If not, my proposal will surely fail. But again, I remain optimistic that with the combination of the endowment, and which I think would very likely be funded by a lot of people in Berks County who revere the Heim, coupled with concessions, reasonable concessions from the union, would make for a wonderful outcome. I want to say I have been, in the limited discussions that I have had with a few union representatives, I have been very pleasantly surprised by their candor and their courtesy. I haven't always been the favorite, the darling of the employees at Berks Heim, as you may know, going back to when I first said we should consider selling it in around 1998 and later around, I forget what it was, 2006 or 7. But I'm willing to be reasonable if other people are willing to be reasonable too. And I am struck and touched by the sincerity of the parties in this matter.